So today we're talking all about dash cams. I went out and I purchased multiple different dash cams from multiple manufacturers to try and see, is there really any difference between a $100 dash cam, a $250 dash cam, and like a $400 dash cam. So in this video, I've got 4 dash cameras from Viofo, I've got 4 dash cameras from Thinkware, I've got 3 dash cameras from Garmin, and just as a wild card, I added, this is the most popular dash cam on Amazon. It retails for about 100 bucks. It's made by a company called Rove. So we're gonna see how all of these dash cams, first of all, compare to one another. We're gonna see, is there really any major difference between all these different brands? And then we're also gonna be able to see, okay, if you spend 100 bucks or you spend 400 bucks, what does that actually look like in terms of usable footage here? So with all that, let me bring you guys over to the bench and kind of go over some of the details of what exactly I have here. All right, so over here at the bench, I've got all of the cameras sort of laid out here so we can see exactly what I purchased here. So starting out down here on the left, I've got 3 options from Garmin. I've got this option from Rove, which includes a rear camera. This is the most popular camera that you can buy on Amazon. I want to say they sell around 10,000 of those a month. Next, I have 4 options from Thinkware. I have their Q200, their ARC 700, their ARC 900, and their U3000. Finally, down here on the far right, I have 4 options from Viofo, again at varying price points, starting at about 100 bucks and going all the way up to about 400 bucks. Just know I'm not going to sit here and really dive into all the nitty-gritty details of what these include, but just know that I spent about an hour and a half measuring, all of the specifications for all of these different cameras, and I put it all into an Excel file that I will put on the screen now. I even included things in there like the length of the power cable, length of the cable going to the rear camera, all sorts of information. So hopefully that'll do a better job than me trying to explain that for every single one of these. Few of the things worth noting here. As I was diving into the specifications, like I was saying, I found something out that was kind of unique. So first of all, if you look at a lot of these different dash cameras, they all claim to have some type of Sony Starvis sensor, and it really didn't matter what Thinkware model you look at or what Viofo model you look at, or even I believe the Rove also claims one of these Starvis sensors. And I'm looking at this going, well, how can a $100 Q200 dash cam from Thinkware have the same sensor as a U3000 that's $450 or $500. How is this even possible? Well, as it turns out, Sony Starvis is a line of sensors made by Sony. So to put this into automotive context, it's like saying your vehicle has an LS engine in it. So yeah, you could have a 4.8 liter truck motor in your car, or you could have a 638 horsepower LS9. Yes, they're both LS engines, but they're pretty far apart, and these sensors are kind of the same way. One other final thing worth noting here is some of what they claim on these packages and in the marketing materials, you can't actually achieve with any of these cameras. So here's what I'm saying. So take this Viofo A329 down here on the end, for example. So this is a 4K 60 frame per second camera. Well, this camera will not do 4K 60 frames per second with HDR turned on. If you turn off HDR, yes, it will do that. So even like this 229 Pro, you can get 60 frames per second out of a 229 Pro, but it's not going to be at 4K. But when you look at the packages on a lot of these, they will claim both. They'll literally say 4K 60 frames a second, even though the camera can't actually deliver 4K 60 frames per second. So hopefully all that makes sense. So there's certain things about doing these type of tests that just put a smile on my face, and I just want to share this with you guys. Take a look at the inside of this vehicle. So there's 12 dash cameras attached to the dash. Look at the wiring in the passenger seat. They wire into the 2 cigarette lighters. There's one there in the console, and then another one here inside. And then back in the back, we've got 7 dash cameras back there. May God have mercy on the soul of the person that runs into me doing this testing. So as you guys saw there, my install was not the cleanest thing in the world, as you would imagine when you try to strap 12 dash cameras to one windshield. There's just no neat and tidy way to do that. But I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. I know I did. Every time I opened the door, it just put a smile on my face. Anyway, what you guys need to understand about this video is because I'm dealing with 12 different dash cameras, a simple 10-minute test drive generates 2 hours worth of video. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these dash cameras into scenarios that I feel it is gonna be relevant to the performance, so you guys can make an educated decision as what's good and what's bad. One of the things I wanna mention here is I'm not gonna throw shade at anybody with what I'm about to say, but this video that you're watching is 4K 60 frames per second. That is how I upload to YouTube. Well, if you're a content creator who is creating content on dash cams and you're trying to actually put images from the dash cams on the screen, well, if that dash cam is 4K 60 frames a second and you don't upload to YouTube in 4K 60 frames a second, what did you just show the audience? See what I'm saying? So the resolution of this video that you're watching is as good or possibly better than some of these dash cameras, so just keep that in mind. So the first test that we're gonna do here is what I'm gonna do is I'm just simply gonna go for a drive and I'm gonna tell you guys a story of what ultimately spurred this video. And as I'm driving along, I'm gonna cut from camera to camera to camera to camera and write down the list. And what that's gonna do for you guys is that's first of all gonna allow you to judge the audio quality of each one of these dash cameras, because you do have the option with these dash cameras to record interior audio. The other thing it's gonna do is it's literally gonna let you see in the exact same environment, in the same scenario, a back-to-back comparison of each one of these dash cameras looking, full field of view across the entire screen, as well as the audio. What does it sound like? So with that, well, let's jump into it. So ultimately what spurred this video is my wife and I, about 1.5 years ago or so, we were involved in a fender bender. And basically what happened was my wife was driving. She was getting ready to make a left-hand turn at a traffic light. The traffic light was red. So we're sitting there stopped at the light, and a woman behind us basically bumped into the back of us at like maybe a 0.5 mile an hour. Like, it wasn't much. So I look back and it's an older lady, handicap sticker in the window, clearly, between late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in that neighborhood. I have her pull over into a gas station that was right there on the corner, and I said, hey, got out of the car, just made sure she was okay, and called the police and waited for the police to show up. In between the time that, I had called the police and the police showed up, the old lady also made a phone call to her daughter to let her daughter know what was going on, which is fine. Well, the daughter shows up before the police get there. Daughter gets in the passenger seat of the vehicle. I'm sitting in the passenger seat of our vehicle, and the old lady and her daughter are to my right. So the cop shows up and gives us the form that you need to fill out, detailing, essentially what went on to cause these two cars to run into one another. So my wife is filling out the form because, well, she was driving. Well, in the car next to us, the daughter, who wasn't there, is telling her, I would say, slightly demented mother, who doesn't really fully comprehend the form that she's reading, how to fill it out. The daughter wasn't there, and she's telling her mother how to fill out the form, what caused her to get in the accident. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat with the window down listening to this because it's hot outside, and the daughter goes, the light turned green, my wife and I took off, and we stopped, which caused the car behind us to run into the back of us, which was a bold-faced lie. The woman that's telling the person writing this information wasn't even there. So I look over, I roll the window up because I tell my wife, I'm like, I can't listen to this because I'm going to blow up to these people if I got to listen to these bold-faced lies like this. So I roll the window up and I kind of lean over and I just get the cop's attention. I'm like, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick or a jerk or telling you how to do your job or anything, but you've got a person in that car over there that wasn't here for the accident, and they're telling the person who was in the accident how to fill out the form. And the cop looked at me and he goes, I get it. Sometimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze, basically. And he goes, it's not really going to matter what she writes on that form. It's pretty clear she ran into the back of you. So no matter what she says, it's going to be her fault. I think it's statistically, it's like 80 or 99. I think statistically, it's like a 99% certainty that if you run into the back of somebody, you're at fault. So that is what ultimately brought, the idea of a dash cam to my attention, kind of got it in the front of my mind, and that's ultimately why I am shooting this video. Now, the second test I want to really do here is going to be license plate readability. So at different distances from the vehicle, I'm going to hold up a license plate. And what we're going to do is we're just simply going to see at what point can you no longer read the license plate with each one of these cameras. Now, what you need to understand is this test is kind of ideal, best case scenario for every one of these cameras because, well, think about it. I'm standing stationary, holding up a license plate. Well, that's a totally different scenario than a vehicle passing by you at 60 miles an hour headed the opposite direction. So what we're going to go over, like I said, is best case scenario here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk out 10 feet from the front of the vehicle and freeze the video. So at this point now, I am holding this license plate 10 feet from the front of this car. And you can see pretty plainly that there's actually a discernible difference in resolution between each one of these images I have here on the screen. Now, what you need to understand is the images that I have here on the bottom are the low price point products in this test. So these are going to be around that $100 price point somewhere. And then what you're seeing here on the top is kind of that low to mid price point of about $200 or so. And taking a look at all of these, well, you can plainly see, the two Garmin options really aren't quite as clear as the rest of them. So let me unfreeze the video and just kind of walk out another 10 feet here. So this is 20 feet out and I'm going to freeze it. And looking at this, you can still read the Viofo options, the A119 and the 229 Plus. Those are, you can, if you try, you can read those. The Garmin's really not so much. Taking a look at the Thinkware options, honestly, the Q200, I'm kind of underwhelmed. For Thinkware being such a, well-known brand in dash cams, this base price point option really isn't all that clear. Honestly, the Rove is the sharpest image here as far as color is concerned, but as far as actually reading the license plate, I'm going to give it to the A119 at the $100 price point. Now, when you go up to that, $200, $250 price point, the A229 and the Thinkware Arc 700, they are extremely close. And if I go out to 30 feet here, I think the Thinkware is slightly cleaner on the license plate than what the Viofo is. It's pretty minor. You're going to have to go full screen to be able to see this, but I do see a slight edge on the Thinkware product here. So what I'm going to do now is the exact same test. So I'm going to walk out to 10 feet and freeze the video, and now you're going to be able to see, okay, some of these higher price point products, how do they compare to what we just looked at? So down here on the bottom, this is going to be kind of the mid to high. This is the A229 Pro, the Arc 900 from Thinkware. And then up top, I have the Viofo 329S, the Thinkware U3000, and then finally the Garmin Live. So if I walk out here 20 feet and freeze it, well, you can plainly see there are some differences between all these. And honestly, the one that's the worst one on the screen is going to be a Garmin. I don't believe the Garmin is even 4K. I think, this thing's like $400, this Garmin Live, and it's a 2K dash cam, which I'm sure it'll work fine in a pinch. If you get in an accident, yeah, it's still going to point out who's liable for it. But as far as picking out fine details, it would not be my first option. So when you go out to 30 feet, yeah, the Garmin's pretty much out of the question. Honestly, the Viofo 229 Pro is that's the best looking picture out of anything in this test so far. So what I have here on the screen are the feeds from all of the rear cameras in this test. So if I walk out 10 feet and freeze it again, you guys can plainly see the difference between each one of these. Now, I think the worst one here is kind of expected. So that's going to be the Rove on the bottom right corner. That is a $100 dash cam that comes with a front and rear camera. So naturally, yeah, it's going to be a little bit compromised due to the price point. So if I go out to 20 feet
and freeze it again. Now we can kind of see the difference between each one of these. And I think from the higher end of price point cameras, the worst one here is probably going to be the Thinkware Arc 700. It's just not quite as clean as the Viofo 229 Plus or the 229 Pro. And taking a look at the Arc 900 and the U3000 from Thinkware, you can see that they are a little bit cleaner than the Arc 700 down below. The thing that's kind of unique about this is, well, all three of these rear cameras from Thinkware are rated at the exact same resolution and frame rate, but you can in fact see a difference. So let me take a step out here to 30 feet and pause it again and talk about the Viofos. So the Viofos, the 229 Plus, the 229 Pro, and the 329S, all three of these, again, just like the Thinkwares, are rated at the exact same resolution and the exact same frame rate. And honestly, I see no difference between a 229 Plus and a 329S as far as the rear camera image quality here. The only thing really worth mentioning about the Viofo cameras is the Viofo 329S is the only one in this test that uses a coax cable going to the rear. The rest of these use a USB cable. Well, a coax cable will actually transmit data much faster than what a USB cable will. So in theory, you should be able to put a better camera on a 329S than what you can any of the 229 series units from Viofo. Does it actually translate into the real world? It doesn't appear as though it does, judging by the images I have here.
So just know at this point in the video, I ran multiple other tests with each one of these dash cams, and I'm not going to show you all of that test footage because, well, the results were either the same or sort of inconclusive. So just to give you an idea of some of the other tests that I did, it just so happened that my local township had a radar trailer measuring everybody's speed on my test route. So that allowed me to check the speedometer readings for every one of these dash cams I have behind me. And as you would imagine, each one of the dash cams was within 1 to 2 miles an hour of what the township said my speed actually was. So what that can allow you to do is, if you're falsely accused of a speeding ticket, well, you can use your dash cam footage to prove that, well, you weren't in fact actually speeding. The second test that I ran was I also ran my test route at night just to see what the footage looked like from each one of the dash cams at night. And honestly, I didn't really see a huge change. The only thing that I do want to mention is the Thinkware U3000. This dash cam has a dedicated night vision mode. And from what I saw in that footage, well, they simply took the video and made it black and white. It didn't really give you any more resolution than any of the other cameras in this test. And the thing is about that, well, think about it. When you're driving around at night, you're going to be using your headlights, and your headlights are going to light up the road in front of you. So I could see the benefit of a night vision mode if you were heavily reliant on a parking mode, but for driving down the road with your headlights on, really doesn't matter that, these cameras have a night vision function. Now, the final test that I do want to conduct in this video is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of the cameras and I'm rolling up to the exact same intersection at the exact same time. And I'm just gonna play about 15 seconds worth of intersection footage for you guys. And we're gonna jump from camera to camera to camera, showing you the exact same video feed from each camera. So that way you guys can make exact A/B comparisons between any of the cameras that I have sitting on the bench behind me here.
So taking a look at this image I have on the screen, this is gonna be common for every camera in this test. And I'm gonna have these sorted in order of price. So the first one we're looking at here is the Viofo A119. This is the cheapest camera in this test at $90. And I really want you to pay attention to, first of all, how the cars move across the screen, but also pay attention to the brick building on the far opposite corner there, that brown brick building. That is a post office. And you can actually read that it is a post office with some of these cameras, and other ones you can't. So as these are cycling through, like this is the Thinkware Q200, and you can see like it's just not anywhere near even the Rove, honestly. And it's just kind of sad that, for $120 that, this is the image quality that you're getting. Even the Garmin, the Garmin is the exact same way. The Garmin, honestly, out on the roadway, it looks like about a 15-year-old cell phone you're recording off your dash with. For $120, it's just kind of shameful, honestly. And what you need to understand here is all of these images that we're taking a look at, well, these are all the highest possible resolution with each one of these cameras. So if the camera offers HDR, HDR is turned on. If the camera is 4K, I have 4K turned on, highest possible resolution. What you need to understand is when you turn on those functions like 4K and HDR, it typically drops the frame rate with each one of these. And depending on what you want to prioritize, well, you can turn the resolution down to get a better frame rate, but you can't get 4K, HDR, 60 frames per second with any one of these cameras. But a cell phone that you buy for $400 or $500, that'll do it. So yeah, you can see here as the price point on these cameras go up, well, the image gets better, but once you get up around that $300 range where we're at now with the A229 Pro, it sort of just levels off here. And from this point forward, you're not really going to see a better image quality out of any of these cameras. So when you start getting, in my opinion, the stupid level, at the $400 price point, yeah, it's a very, very good image. But is this image $100 better than, the $300 camera I just showed you? In my opinion, it isn't. And probably the worst offender at this price point is honestly going to be the Garmin Dashcam Live. This thing is only 2K. It only has a front camera, and it's a $400 price point. It's just way too expensive for the actual image quality that you're getting out of this thing. Going to the two Thinkware options that are left, these are the two most expensive cameras in the test, the Arc 900 at $420. It's a good image. I just don't feel as though it's any better than what you can get in the $270, $280 price point range. It's just way overpriced. You're simply just buying features, I think, at this price point, and I want to talk about that in detail a little bit more right now.
So before we get into final rankings and final results in this video, I wanted to just kind of bring some stuff to light that I sort of noticed with all of these dash cams regardless of brand. And what I quickly found out was it seemed like there was a point of diminishing returns as far as video quality here. So for example, like if you go out and you spend $400 on this Garmin Live, or you spent, let's say, I want to say $300 or $350 on this X210, the video quality is pretty much the same. And it's kind of universal with all these different brands. So for example, like if you go out and you buy a U3000 really at the end of the day isn't that much sharper than a, Arc 900. And what you're ultimately paying for with a lot of these different dash cams is you're paying for features. So at a certain price point, the camera stops getting better and they just start adding more features into this dash camera. So like the Garmin's that I just talked about a second ago, the Garmin's have a built-in lane departure warning that pops up automatically. Now you can turn it off in the settings, but this is how some of these dash cameras are trying to justify this higher price point. It isn't necessarily with the better image quality, because naturally your mind thinks, well, if I spend $400 on a dash camera or $150 on a dash camera, of course the one for $400 is going to have a better image. It isn't necessarily the case, and the Garmin's are the proof of that. And this is, like I said, it's kind of universal across all these different brands. Like if you go to the high-end Viofo, they have telephoto lenses, they've got polarizing filters you can add into your cameras, all sorts of stuff that you can add onto these things, and that is how they're getting that premium price point. It is not the image quality getting that much better. It's just at a certain point, you're just paying for features here. So with all that in mind, starting out down here on the far left-hand side of the bench with 3 dash cameras, under no circumstances do I ever recommend you go out and buy for any reason ever. That is going to be the 3 Garmin options. Honestly, I went into this with high expectations for Garmin just because, well, it's such a recognizable brand. I think everybody in the mid-2000s had a Garmin GPS, And unfortunately, you know, these dash cameras from Garmin just feel like they're about 5 to 10 years behind everybody else that's sitting here on the table. It's just the image quality on all three of these really isn't all that great. The amount of features that you get with these really isn't all that great. Like, for example, this Garmin Dashcam Live is their most expensive version. I want to say it's around 400 bucks. There's no rear camera. Like, none of these have a rear camera option. So they're just lacking overall in image quality. They're lacking in features. The one thing that they do have as well is they have a subscription model. So the subscription is an option. You don't have to go out and do this, but I know on the Dashcam Live, they have the option to back up the camera footage to Garmin's cloud, and then you can access the cloud recordings from anywhere on your phone. They charge a premium for that, a monthly charge, I believe. I'm not even sure how much it is, but at any rate, the image quality that you're going to get out of these cameras just really isn't all that great. The one positive thing that I can say about the Garmin cameras is I do like the form factor. This Garmin Mini 3 is by far the smallest camera here. You know, you could stick this right behind your rear view mirror and you would never even know that it's there. And to me, that's kind of what you want, but there's negatives and positives to that. You know, there's no screen with this. So it really just depends on, you know, ultimately what you want, if you want a screen or not. But as far as a dash camera is concerned, absolutely do not buy a Garmin dash cam. Now, moving over to the Rove. Honestly, the Rove isn't that bad for 100 bucks. If somebody put this in their vehicle, I wouldn't hold it against them. You know, it does produce usable images, and if you were in a situation where you got into an accident and you had this Rove dash camera and the other person had nothing, I'm sure that this thing would get you out of a jam. But with that said, you know, there are far better cameras here on the table, but for 100 bucks for a front and rear dash cam, it's not a bad deal. Now, moving over to the options from Thinkware. Now, honestly, the Thinkware Q200 is going to be their low price point product, and I'm going to say skip it. For 100 bucks, the Viofo A119 V3 is just a far better camera than what this Thinkware Q200 is. The other thing that kind of plays into this is, well, there's no screen on it, which means you have to download an app to be able to see any of the footage on the camera or remove the memory card and put it in a computer. Even on some of their higher price point products like the ARC 700, again, no screen, it's very limited. You basically need to use the app to configure the camera as you want because, well, you can't get to all the options with simply 4 buttons that they give you on the camera. The ARC 900, the next tier up here, does have a screen. This is the only one that I bought from Thinkware that has a screen, but when you go up to the U3000, I don't really see a difference in image quality between a U3000 and ARC 900. The thing is, this is between $450 and $500 depending on what options you're getting with it. There's no screen on this thing again, so you pretty much have to use the app to be able to review any of the footage in the event that you're actually in an accident. If anybody from Thinkware is actually watching this video, I do have one recommendation. Looking at all of the images that I got from these cameras, I think your images need more contrast. So when you compare the images from the Thinkware cameras to the Viofo cameras, the contrast just seemed low, which made the colors like not pop. And because the colors weren't as vibrant, I don't think you could tell, you know, the letters on the license plate weren't nearly as sharp as what they were with the Viofo cameras. Just, you know, my 2 cents if anybody's watching. Now, as far as the brand that I would recommend, now granted, I only tested 4 cameras from them, but I would recommend anything from Viofo. Anything that I have sitting here on the bench, I would recommend. It's really gonna come down to what you wanna pay here. So at the $100 price point, that's gonna be the A119 V3. That's simply a front camera, but the nice thing is all of the Viofo cameras have a screen on them. So in the event that you actually are in an accident You can review the camera, or you can review the footage from the camera on the camera itself. You do not need an extra app. You do not need a computer. You can review it right at the accident, provided you can actually power this thing up. So, and that's common across every one of the cameras from Viofo. Now, if you guys are looking sort of for like that mid-price point Goldilocks option, like what I would recommend, I would say the A229 Plus, and here is why. You're getting essentially the same rear camera as a 329S. You're getting a slightly lower front image quality, but what you can do is this thing is only like 180 bucks, right? So you could buy this for 180 bucks, and then you can take the polarizing filter off of a 229 Pro or a 329S, and that will go on this cheaper camera. So you could buy that polarizing filter separately to improve the front image quality. You've got good image quality in the rear because it's basically the same as the 329S or the 229 Pro. The highest thing that I would personally purchase from Viofo would be the A229 Pro. The advantage over the Pro versus the Plus is the Pro, you're getting a 4K front camera. The Plus is a 2K front camera. Honestly, the A329S and the 229 Pro, the images were largely the same. So to me, I don't see any benefit for paying for the extra features of the 329 over the 229. It just basically depends on what you want here. But as far as a brand to recommend, I would recommend Viofo. That doesn't mean there are bad options from Thinkware. You just have to be a little bit more selective about what you're buying. So hopefully all of that makes sense. So that's pretty much what I have for this video, guys. I think the biggest takeaway from this video is if you're considering to buy a dash cam, please just do it. Because if you get into an accident, you have the dash cam and the other person doesn't, ultimately it comes down to your word against theirs. And if you've got video and they don't, well, guess what? You're the one that's in the right because, well, the video is going to tell you the truth. So at any rate, guys, I will have links down in the description to all the different dash cameras I featured in this video if you guys want to go out and purchase any of those. As always, guys, if you guys like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, go down and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.